Well, it was 40 years ago when our next guest helped to create the first contracts in what's now a $20 trillion financial futures market. In the late 1980s, he led the push for electronic trading, propelling his Chicago-based CME group to dominate U.S. futures exchanges. And now he has a book out describing that evolution called For Crying Out Loud, From Open Outcry to the Electronic Screen. Leo Melamed joins us right now here in studio. Good to have you with us. Good
nice
afternoon.
To be here, Carol.
So your book, For Crying Out Loud, so you did lead quite a transformation in terms of what happened at the exchange. I mean, people call you the father of financial futures. How does it feel, though, to take it from all of that, yelling in the pits and so on and so forth to really a lot of electronic trading?
Well, it was a difficult time because a lot of people got displaced, as you know.
Right.
Technology moves on, but if we didn't, we would have lost the market. So it was a choice of staying with it and beating status quo and coming out into the electronic world and actually winning.
You write in your book about pretty much the last 10 years. I mean, what's so most significant to you in terms of that transformation, that time period?
Well, in those last 10 years, it was when we actually went from open outcry to Globex, which is the electronic screen.
Right.
And the world was moving very quickly. Europe was a little bit ahead of us. Even though we started before them, we had lost ground. And so the last 10 years was really touch and go, and we had to win because it was an enormous potential market.
What do you see as the future at this point?
Well, I think it's pretty good. Our markets were the very best during this meltdown. We had no problems, no bailouts, no losses of any kind, and nobody went broke. And so our markets held up, and I think that strength is going to bring us more business.
Right, but at this point, everybody's trying to figure out what to do with credit default swaps. You folks as well. I mean, what do you think will be eventually the handling? It will be a clearinghouse?
Well, I think that they will go to a clearinghouse, but I think they'll be traded pretty much the way they used to be traded, which is probably the way it wants to go, but it wants to clear at a major regulated exchange where it's much safer when that happens. Had it been that way, we might not have had the losses we had.
I mean, let me ask you about that, because you have seen an awful lot of financial cycles and financial crises to some extent, but nothing like what we've seen in the last year and a half. I mean, what did we learn?
Well, we learned that there is something called too big to fail and that we ought not get to that point. Mm-hmm. Fortunately for the CME group, we were very big, but our system held up enormously well. Others didn't. So we learned that the markets that do trade with the system that we have in clearing, where it's very transparent,
right,
where we mark to the market every day, that's a stronger system.
Let me ask you, you talk about being too big. The CME, you control, I think it's something like 98% of the U.S. futures trading market. Are you guys getting too big, and are you concerned at all about antitrust concerns?
Well, no, actually we're not, because we passed that hurdle and we proved ourselves. As a matter of fact, if we had done anything less than we did, you would have heard about it. We were perfect during the worst financial meltdown in modern history, of course. And so we proved our worth.
All right. And we talked a little bit about the credit default swap market. I know you guys are working with people like PIMCO, BlackRock, DE Shaw, to really kind of back those trades in the credit default swap market. I mean, ultimately, how do you see that playing out, those relationships?
Well, I think we've got a very good relationship with all of these, and we're now getting the sell side as well. We're in great discussions. I think it's all going to move, and I'm very hopeful that the Merc will be a major player in credit default swaps.
But how soon will all this play out?
Well,
because people have been talking.
I know, and we've had some delays, and that's it's a big market. It's a very hard thing to do, but we know what we're doing.
Well, what's holding it up? Because it is so complicated. I mean, many would say we got to. This was what brought down, or almost brought down, the financial system.
Well, not us, but
no,
yeah,
but the market as a whole. So many people would say this is the nut that we have to crack at this point.
Well, the credit default swaps are only one of the elements that were in trouble. I mean, there were a lot of other over-the-counter market derivatives that were. I think this is a big nut to crack. I think we started a little bit slow because we tried to make a trading complex as well. And we're now going in the direction of pure clearing, which is what the trade wants. And I think we're on the right track now.
All right, what about derivatives regulation? Is there more need for that, in your view?
Well, the over-the-counter market certainly needed more regulatory oversight. It didn't have it. And I think many of those over-the-counter markets will now get additional regulatory oversight. I think that's a good thing. I think you got to be careful with it so that you don't drive these markets offshore. You can't push it to a point where you lose the market, because these markets will go somewhere.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, then do you think the folks that we have in place in Washington on the regulatory front understand the market enough to strike the right balance here?
Well,
you're starting to smile a little bit.
I keep my fingers crossed about that every time you tell me that. I'm,
well,
it's scary.
Right.
No, I mean, some of them are certainly very competent people. But, there's sometimes it becomes overzealous, and you just maybe want to do a little bit what you shouldn't be wanting to do. The overkill is the thing we fear.
And that's the risk. That's the greatest risk.
That's a great risk, because in a global world like this, these markets can go overnight somewhere else. Electronically, you can move them, whether it's Europe or Asia or Bermuda. They can go.
I got to throw something out at you. Brad Hintz, you know who he is, top-ranked analyst covering brokerages. He said earlier this year that the CME doesn't, quote, have customers because the street views the CME as a threat, not because the CME product is in any way flawed. What do you say to that? Well,
I say to that we're very, very conscious of what our risks are. And, it's a competitive game. We're up on our game. I would put the CME up to any company in the world, and our record speaks for itself. I mean, look, we didn't get here by doing the wrong thing. We do the right thing. Most of the time, we do it early.
All right, and I'm assuming in pushing, to do the right thing is greater transparency and regulation if necessary. And I'm thinking about the over-the-counter market. I mean, is your goal here to grab more of it? I think it's like a $680 trillion market. So how much of that are you hoping to grab here?
The quote of $680 trillion makes me blush, because that's as big as you can get. And you only need a little percentage of that.
So 10% would be make you happy?
That would be wonderful. But I think we're going to go for more. I think that a lot of the over-the-counter market will come our way because the system is strong. But we can't and don't want all of it. I mean, it's just not possible to get it all.
And not healthy?
And not healthy. Probably that's right. So you want the competition, you want other systems to work, and you want to compete with them. Okay. But we're going to get a fair share.
All right, good. 10%? 15%?
No, I'm not going to predict.
All right, appreciate some time with you. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks to Leo Melamed. He's Chairman Emeritus of the CME.